Mr. Chair.
Kelvin Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And talking to the title, clause 1, the title, and I pick up on a number of points that previous speakers have made. The Returning Offenders Management and Information Act 2015, and Jacinda Ardern has made the perfect argument. Many of these people are not returning New Zealanders. And let me give you an example. When I was on Christmas Island and visited the 8 detainees, one of them was a young man by the name of Ronald Nielsen. He looked and he sounded Australian. And let me tell you, the reason he looked and sounded Australian is because he was born in Australia. He was born there. Well, how does work? Well, obviously the member there hasn't been to Christmas Island and hasn't spoken to these people and absolutely knows what I know about their situation. It's fine for him to sit over there in a seat and spouting off, but he doesn't actually understand the human side of this whole situation, and he doesn't care. But let me explain, Mr. Chair. This man is Australian. He was born there, and yet this bill that his party has written says the returning offenders. Well, he's not returning anywhere. He's being deported from his homeland. That, Mr. Speaker, is the point that the member needs to look at. Then we talk about the offenders, and we've got Ko Rutene, who hasn't committed any offence in New Zealand or Australia. The Minister said last night that he's not going to be subject to this. If he gets deported back to New Zealand, there won't be somebody at the airport waiting to ask him for his identifying particulars and his identifying information, and that's good. But also, he's not going to be eligible for the $200 in his back pocket or the 5 nights in a motel while he's trying to get himself on his feet. And I also raised that case about Ko Rutene because there are going to be more and more New Zealanders, or more and more Australian New Zealanders who are going to be deported. Now, I don't know if anyone's heard about the ill-fated Operation Fortitude, which was set up in Melbourne in late October, where the Australian authorities were picking up people on the street.
The member, order. Well, a title, member will sit. Title and commencement. You've had more than half the speech so far on summing up, which you're allowed to do. It's a peroration, that's fine. I'd now like to hear something on the title and commencement. Kelvin Davis.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, but I'm talking about people who are going to be deported under this bill who are said to be offenders, and yet they haven't offended. In Operation Fortitude, an ill-fated police and border force operation in Australia is going to end up more people are going to be deported as offenders. Then we've got the management. Well, it is the mismanagement because these people, their situations will not be managed other than a couple of $100 in the back pocket, 5 nights in a motel, and then nothing. There's going to be no support for them beyond that. What are they going to do is the question.
Tie it back to the title and commencement. Tie it back to the title and commencement.
I'm talking about the management of these
tie it back to the title and commencement.
I'm talking about the management which is in the title, Mr. Chair. And these people are not going to be managed. And then the information that's been collected, well, it is scratchy information at best. And one of the best examples is the information that's going to be collected from them is their address. Well, when you've just got out of Christmas Island, sorry, not you, Mr. Chair, when a person has just got off Christmas Island, has just got out of a detention centre in Australia and is brought back here, they have no address. They have no address to return to. And let me tell you about another detainee who's coming back, who has connections to the Bay of Plenty area. In his childhood, he was raised in New Zealand. He had a horrific childhood, suffering all sorts of things, witnessing his father murder his mother, his father committed suicide, he was sexually abused. Now, Mr. Chair, he doesn't want to go back to where he came from there. He told me on the island that there's no way on earth he wants to go back to where he came from, to his former address, and possibly meet the people that have committed the abuses against him. So these people are not being managed. The information that's going to be collected about them, such as their addresses, that's going to change because their lives are in a state of flux. We need to be cognizant, Mr. Chair, of that whole situation around it. And so the Act, the Returning Offenders Management and Information Act 2015, Mr. Speaker, I believe doesn't really represent the full picture. It doesn't represent the Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
I can call Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'm happy to take a call on the